Okay, so just for the people that aren't familiar with that, explain the qualified charitable distribution. The QCD is what is the acronym
Yeah,
for
that's the acronym for it. A qualified charitable distribution is when money goes from an IRA directly to a charitable organization. And the reason that I really like it is you don't have to include that in your income. You don't get a charitable deduction for it, but there are advantages that come from being able to exclude it from your income. And so it's a great way to be able to still benefit tax-wise from charitable deductions. With the change under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to the standard deduction amount, there's a lot of people that aren't benefiting from charity. They're taking the standard deduction so that by reducing the income, they still get a tax benefit.
All right, so let's talk about how that benefit might come. What might it affect? So let me just give an example here. Let's say that I've got a married couple. They're over the age of 72, so they're having to take required minimum distributions. They're over the age of 70 and a half for the QCD, and they've got Social Security income combined. Maybe it's let's call it $55,000. They've got some interest and dividends coming off of some investments. Say maybe another $30,000 there. So now they're at $85,000 of income, and they've got to take an RMD out of their IRA. They don't really need the money, but let's say they got $1 million in their IRA, so they're going to have to take out close to $40,000, but they're charitable. All right, so what you're saying is let's use the required minimum distribution out of the IRA, give that to charity, or a portion of that to charity. How might that benefit the situation that I just explained?
So at that income level, if we give enough to charity, we might be able to reduce the provisional income. And that is a fancy way that they go through and calculate how much of the Social Security is subject to tax. So what we're doing is if we can reduce the amount of income that's reported on the tax return, we can then pay less tax on the Social Security. So Social Security is one of those things that, everybody says, well, isn't all income tax the same? And Social Security is not, because you can have none of your Social Security taxed, or you can go up to 85% of it being subject to tax.
Right, and the other part of that, too, is if they got $30,000 in interest and dividends.
Do we have any that's qualified dividends?
Right, so those qualified dividends could be tax-free, but if you get too much of an income level, then they become taxable.
Right, and so we have two different things that we're looking at by giving the qualified charitable distribution. Okay. And we're able to reduce the taxation possibly on some of the qualified dividends and also on the Social Security. So even though all we've done is changed the method of giving, we're able to have a tax savings.
And you would agree, JoAnn, that after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the qualified charitable distributions, the QCDs, were actually far more beneficial, and you gave the reason for that earlier, but I want to make sure people caught it. It's because the standard deduction has increased to such a large level that a lot of people aren't itemizing, and so they're not getting to take advantage of that charitable contribution. And so the QCD is a way that they can get the money to charity, never shows up on the tax return, won't cause more Social Security to become taxable, won't cause qualified dividends to become taxable that otherwise may not have been. Mm-hmm. And so there is a big benefit.
Right. And, that's a kind of a lower income level, but we also get to the point where, let's say we have more income and you're going to have to pay a Medicare surtax. So maybe if we're able to get, and that's a 3.8% net investment income tax on your investment income.
Right.
So we might be able to save that.
Right. And don't forget the increased Medicare premiums.
And that's where I was going to go next, is we can also possibly save on Medicare premiums, because most people aren't aware that the amount you pay for Medicare depends on the amount of income you have. So if we can keep you in a lower tier by doing a qualified charitable distributions, even though it's not a tax savings per se, it still results in more money being in your pocket.
Starting your route to retirement